Ladies and gentlemen, the MMA MOSTT initiative findings recently published in the Harvard Business Review. So, how modern marketing organizations create value? In this session, Dr. New Morgan, professor of marketing, Kelley School of Business, Indiana University, will use brand marketing data to show how alignment between the chosen value, configuration, and capabilities required. And please join me in welcoming him on screen.
My name is Neil Morgan. I'm going to talk to you today about some work we've been doing with the MMA over the last 3+ years about marketing organizations and how they can better try and drive growth. So I've been studying marketing for 25+ years, probably more like 30, and clearly, lots changed. Marketing is much more is different, and in some ways a lot more exciting than it's ever been in the past. But along with that excitement comes a whole host of kind of challenges which you guys are living with and breathing every day. Not least of which is digital technologies, new media, fundamentally changing customer expectations, and not just in terms of faster, better, cheaper, but also in terms of things like personalization, whether or not your brand is aligned with the societal issues and sustainability issues, all of those kinds of things. You've got new competitors, direct to consumer in lots of industries, coming at you with technologies from companies you've never heard of, and fundamentally, new business models, new competitors, and what I call for lots of companies kind of a fear of being blindsided. It's not just the old competitors that you know and love. There are new things arriving every day. Regulatory environment becoming a bigger and bigger issue, and likely to continue to be. We're expecting privacy regulations. We're already dealing with biases in AI and having to prove that our systems don't deliver against those. And then on the company side, company expectations of what do they want from marketing. Increasingly, it's not just kind of the old school brand management stuff, but it's really about growth. What are you doing to drive the company's growth? And in the explosion of data, not just lots more data available, but what you need in order to be able to do your job effectively. All of which has kind of fundamental implications for how you try and organize your operations in order to try and make all of this happen. And clearly, we started out in this journey kind of 3.5 years ago, asking the question, well, how are marketing organizations responding to all of these kinds of challenges? And the answer, as you may kind of expect, is, between 70 and 80% of organizations are unhappy in some way with the operating effectiveness of their marketing organization. And we saw, all sorts of challenges that are reasonably common across organizations, and which, if you just take a quick look at what those that are listed on the slide, if I was going to get a poll and hand raises, I get a lot of hand raises and a kind of a lot of nods. These are things that you will see day to day in your organization. And so just over 3 years ago, we partnered with this is a group of academics, of which I'm one, partnered with the MMA to develop the marketing organization structure think tank, Mostt. And this was a collaborative effort for us on behalf of the MMA members to try and figure out not just what the nature of the challenges facing marketing organizations were, but also about what organizations might be able to do about it, particularly in ways that would enable them to drive the increasing growth expectations, which most marketing organizations are now being asked to deliver. And you'll see a whole, it's a very busy slide. You'll see a whole bunch of stuff on there. You can go to the Mostt MMA website, and in fact, I'm going to urge you to do that as I go through this presentation, because there's a bunch of resources there that will help you deal with some of the challenges that we're going to talk about, and some of the tools that I'm going to recommend that you may want to use as we go through the session that I'm going to talk about today. And so you think about marketing organization, and very often when I talk to MBA students or executive MBA students about marketing organization, they kind of scratch their chins a little bit, and it's kind of, well, why is marketing organization such a big issue? And if you just look at these kinds of questions, do we have the right structure? Do we have the right number of levels? Are the right people reporting to the right people? Are they grouped together in ways that make sense, that enable people to collaborate and coordinate in the work that they do? Should we be more decentralized or centralized in terms of things like budgets or programs or products and the way that we deliver them? What's our marketing organization's footprint? I mean, kind of what are we responsible for? What do we have decision rights for? Are those the right things? Do we have the ability to say yes or no on things that really matter to us being able to deliver on what we're being asked to deliver from a kind of a C-level perspective? What should we be doing in-house versus out-house? Every new thing that comes along, does that mean that we have to do it? And if we have to do it, does that mean we have to do it in-house, or do we do it out of house? And how do we make those decisions about how much and what to in-source versus outsource? And ultimately, fundamentally, does our marketing organization, can it do the things necessary in order to be able to deliver growth? And that's kind of the way that we're going to talk about kind of capabilities. So if you ask, and again, if we had time and I was to run a poll, all of you kind of ask all of these questions, and probably on a reasonably frequent kind of a basis. And that gives you the clue as to just how important kind of marketing organization structure is. And if you're a CMO and you think about, how much time do I spend thinking about strategy versus execution? Well, marketing organization design is really about how do I execute the things that I need to execute. So marketing organization issues take up, probably the vast majority of the time of an average kind of a CMO. So what I'm going to talk to you about today is some work, and you will have seen, hopefully you will have seen some of the first wave of kind of the marketing organization structure think tank work. There was an HBR paper. If you go onto the MMA website and look at the Mostt, there's a bunch of stuff that you will see that we've already done. What I'm going to talk to you about today is about a study that we've been engaged in very recently, capturing data from a benchmarking study that we've been doing, and you'll see up here a little infographic about the kind of the Markups benchmark survey. It's a tool I'm going to encourage you, if you haven't already, to go and use. But but it's not just useful to you individually as a CMO or working in a company, but it's also useful to us because we can explore across companies what seems to be working and not working. And so we've been engaged and when I say we, I'm talking about Sundar Bhardwaj, Omar Rodriguez Villa, Shubha Mitra. We've been working on this stuff for the last 3+ years. And what I'm going to share with you is the output of a very simple kind of an analysis, which is we're distinguishing between marketing organizations based on our benchmark survey. So we're talking, I think now in excess of 700 companies, where we look at just do a straightforward kind of distinction between winning marketing organizations and lagging marketing organizations. So when I say winning, WMO, I'm talking winning marketing organizations. And we looked for splits in the data about where, where there are easy ways to distinguish companies that are clearly doing better or clearly doing worse than others in terms of their marketing organization issues. And so we're going to give you some insights on kind of the questions that I just asked in terms of structure and centralization, decentralization, insourcing, outsourcing, all that kind of good stuff. And actually, Omar gave an excellent presentation on the initial results of this to the global MMA boards relatively recently. In terms of the session that we have today, we're not going to have time to do that, but I want to share with you kind of the top level piece of it, and because it's really informative. And if you think about these buckets of work, kind of, the structure of your organization, the insourcing, outsourcing issue, the roles, responsibilities issue, the centralization, decentralization issue, one factor seems to have a much stronger predictive power in determining winning versus lagging marketing organizations. And that factor is market capability fit. And when I say market capability fit to you, that doesn't mean very much. So let me tell you what it means, because I'm going to zero in on this one thing because it explains much more variance in terms of a winning marketing organization design than any of the other factors that we have looked at so far. And explains a high proportion of the variance. So when we talk about market capability fit, it's in very simple terms, all we're talking about is the difference between how important capabilities are for growth in your organization and your level of performance on those activities. It's a simple importance versus performance difference and averaged out over a set of capabilities. Right? And so you think about, well, how do we do this? We start with what we call a complete list of marketing capabilities. And that list I can show you. And if you haven't seen this already, go to the Mostt website on the MMA. There's a copy of this map on there for you to be able to access. And this comes from the work that we've done with the think tank that was published in HBR at the very end of 2020. And this is a list of 72 different capabilities that organizations can, that are the kind of the map of the activities of modern marketing organizations. And this, it's not the case that you have to do all of these things or be great at all of these things, but this is the range of different marketing capabilities available to an organization. And these include both kind of foundational things, traditional things that may have been true 15 or 20 years ago, but also much more data-driven, technology-driven, digital things, types of activities from a capability perspective. So if you take this map of 72 different marketing capabilities and you simply have to ask yourself the question, what's the relative importance of these capabilities for driving the growth strategy that my firm is engaged in? Right? That gives you some kind of a ranking of importance. And then if you ask the second question, where's, and I'll take a simple example, if you were just to get your marketing organization and the people within it to score themselves on a, out of 10 for each of these activities, what would we be scoring very highly on versus very low? And then simply what we're doing is we're looking at the difference, right? The difference between how important the capability is to driving your growth strategy and how well you are performing that in terms of that capability in your organization today. And the average fit across the 72 equals market capability fit. And I'll say it very slowly. Market capability fit, being the most developed on the things that matter most to executing your company's growth strategy, predicts performance. And it's the single biggest predictor of performance outcomes by a long way in all of the factors that we have looked at so far. And here's just a little illustration of the relative difference between kind of winning marketing organizations. Their average capability fit score is 81%. Right? You think about that kind of like a correlation. We're doing well on the things that are the most important. We're doing less well on the things that are the less important. One being perfect. You look at the lagging marketing organizations, not only are they way behind in terms of their fit score, but if you look at this little chart, you'll actually see that they have a reverse slope, right? They're actually best at the things that matter least. And unsurprisingly, that's not very helpful in terms of executing a growth strategy and delivering kind of growth outcomes. And so we have some, and this is kind of the top line kind of results from the benchmarking study. The degree of fit, companies with a high degree of fit, this market capability fit, they're delivering 3 times more growth in terms of their organizations. And that's using self-reported data, and we should always be, as academics, we're always interested in the more objective we can get, the better. So for a subset of these companies, we actually have objective data, sales and performance data from secondary sources. Right? And so even when you go just to the objective data with this smaller set of companies, a company with a higher level of market capability fit is delivering staggeringly higher growth outcomes. Right? If you were just to improve your market capability fit by 1%, that would deliver you a 2.5% top line revenue growth outcome. Right? Real numbers, real data, objective data. And we're academics, we're interested in kind of the science of the answer. And these kind of numbers kind of blow us away. And as academics, we control for all of the other things that could potentially explain such differences in the way that we do. So fit drives performance. Market capability fit drives performance. So good news. I can tell you what good looks like, right? Where you need to get to. And so the conversations then roll on in terms of, so how do I get me that? How do I improve? How do I figure out what my fit is, and how do I improve my fit so that I can drive this top line performance outcomes? And traditionally, the way people, CMOs and marketing orgs think about these things, they think about things like, okay, let me go hire some people with the capabilities. Or let me try upskilling or reskilling my existing people, create a marketing academy. Or maybe I need to restructure my organization, or to rejig my ecosystem partners. Or to find more specialists that I can outsource things to, because they must be better at doing things than we are. And all of these things kind of make sense, and then kind of top of mind knee-jerk responses to how do I improve my market capability fit. But I'm going to tell you, even though each of these things may be a sensible thing to do, it is not where you start. The most common places that most organizations start are not the right place to start. Right? So what we commonly observe in most organizations when they think about building capabilities is they focus exclusively on people issues. Right? It's all about the talent and have I got the right talent and training. They don't have data to inform which capabilities they want to be trying to improve in the first place. We measure all sorts of things in most of our organizations, and we measure some of them with great precision and on a daily basis. We don't measure marketing capabilities, the things that drive the outcomes, though the single biggest predictor of kind of winning marketing organizations that we've discovered. And figuring out which capabilities to focus on. It's not just that you need data in order to be able to do that, but you need to connect the capabilities that you're going to focus on to the growth strategy being executed by your organization. And there's a natural inclination for CMOs to also think about, well, what are the things that I own can I fix? Well, and it turns out that very often it's not necessarily the things that the marketing organization owns, which is the best route for the marketing organization to help deliver against the organization's growth outcomes. Very often you can do that more effectively by helping the other functions or departments or areas in your organization that do drive or lead a set of activities. And in return, you need their help in order to deliver on the things you are responsible for. And lastly, what we see very often is companies trying to build 10 capabilities simultaneously. Right? Well, the world just doesn't work like that. That's not something you can do. You have to prioritize. And so, kind of, how do I do this? And I'll give you a kind of a quick overview of a structured process by which you can do this, and point you to some tools and some resources that you can use along the way. So number one says, the first thing you have to do is to figure out what are the most important capabilities and how well am I performing on those things, right? So identifying the capabilities that are the most important to driving growth in your organization and benchmarking how well your organization is performing those things today. That's where you start. Right? And so you can start with the map of the 72 marketing capabilities that we developed and that we published in the HBR. This map that I showed you earlier is available to you. And if I'm a CMO, what would I do? I'd get my senior marketing team together. I'd get them individually to rank and or score these 72 marketing capabilities with the question, which of these are going to be the most important capabilities over the next 2 or 3 years to drive growth in this organization? And then get them together and negotiate a kind of a consensus view of what you think. And then the second thing is, once you know kind of what the most important capabilities are, the next question is, how well are you performing on those? And if you go to the Mostt website at the MMA, you'll see the benchmark. We have a kind of a free version of this kind of a benchmarking tool that will help you calibrate how well you are doing on some of these things. And that will get you to a point where you've got the importance, you've got the performance, and again, this is not 3 decimal points of precision, and frankly, it doesn't need to be. It roughly right in the capability space is usually much better than the alternatives. Right? So if you've got an idea of the importance and you've got an idea of how well you're performing on these things, then the next question is kind of, what are the gaps? Where are the gaps? And we've worked with a number of organizations, and so some of you may recognize some of these kind of what we call the spider web kind of maps. And so, the importance here is in kind of the orange that you will see in the middle, and how well you are performing those capabilities, those same capabilities, is shaded here in blue. And you'll see that for the most part, or there are lots of places in which there's kind of clear orange ocean, right? Big patches of orange. And the big patches of orange tell you those are things that are important to being able to deliver growth in your organization in the near future, and in which your capabilities are underdeveloped or lacking. And this helps you figure out kind of from a prioritization perspective. And actually what we recommend is that you kind of bucket things, right? So if you look at the line up the middle here in terms of this graphic, things that are close to the line, there's a reasonably good fit. The level of development of a capability is reasonably aligned with the level of importance in being able to deliver growth in your organization. Those are things you need to sustain, monitor, but sustain. At the bottom, you've got things that we call the harvest bucket, where you're over delivering, where you're better at doing something, and the things that you are the best at doing are the least important. And here the question is, how can I claw back some resources? How can I automate some of those things? How can I simplify some of those things? If necessary, how can I outsource some of those things so I can free up some resources to focus on building capabilities in the areas that I need to build them? And then at the top of this, you'll see this is kind of the strengthen bucket, right? So these are the things where you are underdeveloped in terms of your capability performance relative to its importance to being able to deliver growth in your organization. That enables you to start to zero in on, if I'm going to build capabilities from a prioritization perspective, where are the biggest gaps and where are those gaps the biggest in the most important capabilities for executing a growth strategy over the next 2 or 3 years. That's where you start to prioritize. Finally, you get to a point where you start to identify, and of these things, which are the capabilities where marketing leads, and even if marketing leads, who supports us in doing that? And where are the areas that marketing may not lead, but where there are big gaps so that they should be prioritized anyway? And there the question is, how can we best help whichever function, department, group leads that set of activities? How can we change what we do in conjunction with them in order to better support their ability to deliver and execute on those things that they actually lead? And that enables you to develop a kind of a prioritization of, well, what are the capabilities that we should prioritize, and how do we start to put together detailed and specific blueprints that will enable us to be able to redesign and execute a capability to building strategy around those priorities. Right? So here's kind of an example from a company that we worked with, where they had two areas in which the marketing organization led that were priorities for capability building, and a third area, in this case it was in the customer experience area, where they didn't own that set of capabilities, but that being able to deliver against those for the organization as a whole was absolutely critical to being able to drive growth. And there the question was, and what can the marketing organization do to better support the customer service function's ability to execute in that realm? And when you talk about building capabilities, one of the knee jerks that I talked about earlier from most CMOs is they immediately focus on people issues. And I'm not going to tell you that people are not important, because they are. Do I have enough people? Do they have the right competencies? Do they have the right level of knowledge and skills and experience in order to be able to do their job? That's an important question. But it's one of only four different components. There are 3 other components of any capability that you need to think about. So people's important, but you also need to think about process, you need to think about systems, and you need to think about data. And in lots of organizations, I can tell you, process is as important and sometimes more important than people. And data and systems are really important pillars of being able to build any marketing capability. And so if you're going to build a capability blueprint, I think our advice is trying to build more than 2, maybe 3 at the push capabilities at any one point in time is kind of the route to madness. Right? You can't do everything. Building capabilities is not easy. It takes time. It takes resources. So for the 2 or 3 maybe prioritized marketing capabilities that you need to be able to deliver against, you got to have a detailed blueprint for what good looks like in order to be able to work backwards on how do we get there. And clearly that means, people, do we have the right people? Do they have the knowledge? Do they have the skills? Incentives, am I going to reward them for doing the right things? Do we have the right culture to get them to work together? But process is hugely important here, right? How do I break down this capability into a set of discrete activities? What tools should they use in order to be able to accomplish those activities? What methods, what frameworks? Who's going to play what role in the group of people, because it's usually a group, the group of people that are going to be able to execute this? Who gets what decision rights? Who has to ask permission and when in order to be able to do this stuff? And then you've got the technology piece of this, which is about the systems and the suppliers and maybe the consulting tools that maybe you need to access. And all of this is kind of, clearly you need data in order to be able to make decisions and execute tasks. Where is that going to be reside in the organization? What types of information do they need? How are they supposed to be able to use it? And how do we design that data system such that it's providing the data on time and in the most actionable format for people to be able to do this stuff? If you don't have a capability blueprint where you've got details in each of these four elements, then you're going to struggle in terms of trying to build a marketing capability and improve your market capability fit. You're really going to struggle.
Thank you so much for your wonderful presentation, Dr. New Morgan. Ladies and gentlemen, and now we move to the smartest Vietnam shortlist winner 2021.